Improve your English through stories. There was a man who felt really, really nervous. He wanted to explain that even though he was anxious, it didn't mean he was crazy. He had this sickness that made his senses super sharp, especially his hearing. He started talking about an old man he knew. This old man had an eye that looked like a vulture's eye, and it made the man uneasy. Imagine, the eye was cloudy and pale, like a window with thick fog on it. Even when the eye was closed, it seemed to watch him, like a secret spy in the dark. That bothered him a lot, made him feel like he was being stared at all the time. He insisted that despite this, he cared about the old man. Picture this. The room was quiet, but that eye, with its strange and eerie appearance, stood out. It felt like the eye was staring right through him, even when it was shut. He would be in the room, maybe reading or just trying to relax, and that vulture-like eye would be there, giving him the shivers. He insisted that despite this, he cared about the old man. But every time he looked at that peculiar eye, it sent a chill down his spine, like a ghost passing by. It wasn't just the look of the eye. It was the feeling it gave him, as if something wasn't quite right. The room, once a place of comfort, became filled with an uneasy atmosphere because of that eye. And that's when the story really started to get strange and unsettling. One night, in the darkness, he decided to do something about that eye. He sneaked into the old man's room, and his heart was pounding because he was so scared. The room was really quiet, and every little noise made him jump. He used a light to see the eye better, but accidentally, the old man woke up. Now, he was even more scared, and he could hear the old man's heart beating really fast. In a moment of fear, he did something really wrong to stop the heart from beating. After that, he hid the old man's body, and strangely, he felt proud of what he did. But then, things took a turn. He started hearing a heartbeat in his head, even though the old man was gone. It was like a drum that wouldn't stop, and it made him feel guilty. After he did the bad thing and hid the old man's body, a neighbor heard a scream and got really worried. The neighbor quickly called the police, and before he knew it, they came rushing in with their flashing lights. When the police arrived, he tried his best to act normal, like nothing was wrong. The police asked him about the loud noise. They asked him questions about what happened in the house. He felt really nervous, like when you're about to say something you shouldn't. And he did his best to answer their questions calmly. But deep inside, he felt a jumble of nerves. It was like there was a drum beating in his head, making him more and more scared. In his mind, he thought the police could hear this imaginary drum, even though they couldn't. Then, as the police kept asking questions, the imaginary drum in his head reached a crescendo. It was as if the beat echoed louder and louder, drowning out everything else. In his anxious state, he couldn't shake off the feeling that the police were somehow catching on to this make-believe sound. The pressure built up inside him, and he couldn't hold it back any longer. In a moment of intense unease, he blurted out the truth about the bad thing he did. The confession hung in the air, and for a moment, he wondered if the police would react. He couldn't keep it inside anymore, so he told them about the bad thing he did. He even showed them where he hid the old man's body. It was like letting out a big secret that was weighing on him. Surprisingly, they didn't seem to catch on, leaving him bewildered and relieved. After he told them everything, the police were still there. They didn't do anything right away, like taking him away or anything. The story ends with him feeling all mixed up, not sure what would happen next. The police seemed kind of clueless about the real story, leaving a lot of questions hanging in the air. It's like a big mystery that didn't get solved. The police listened, but they didn't do anything right away. They didn't take him to jail or punish him. It was kind of strange. The police stayed there for a while, maybe talking among themselves or trying to figure things out. The man kept talking, sharing all the feelings he had about the old man and the strange eye. The room where everything happened was described in a way that made it sound really old and creepy, with shadows everywhere. As he shares his emotions, the man delves into the conflicting feelings he has for the old man. He emphasizes that, despite the unsettling eye, he truly cares for the old man. This inner conflict adds layers to the story, making it more than just a tale of fear. The more he talked, the more he realized that the people listening didn't quite trust his words. Doubt hung in the air like a heavy cloud. It made the man even more anxious, wondering if his attempt to explain had worked or if they thought he was truly mad. As time passed, the atmosphere in the room changed. It went from being super tense to just quiet. The police didn't seem to understand him. They might have thought he was just scared or nervous about something else. And then, without doing much, the police left. It was a bit surprising because, after everything he confessed, he expected something more to happen. But there he was, still in the room, feeling all mixed up and not knowing what would come next. The police left him standing there, unsure about what the future held. Then, after the police left without doing anything, the made-up drumbeat slowly disappeared from his thoughts. It was like the sound got quieter and quieter until it was almost gone. But even though he felt a bit better, there was still a mess of feelings inside him. Standing in the room all by himself, he looked around. The imaginary drumbeat wasn't bothering him as much, but the room still felt heavy with what happened. The old man wasn't there anymore, but the memory of what he did stayed with him. As he stood there, he had to deal with what came after confessing. The room, where everything happened, felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something. It was a strange moment, where he had to face the feelings left behind by what he did. The story ended with him standing in the room, trying to make sense of everything that just happened, now with the added weight of his own admission to the police. With the police gone and the imaginary drumbeat fading away, he felt a mix of things. On one hand, he was relieved that the police didn't do anything to him right then. But on the other hand, he was confused. The room seemed different now, and he wasn't sure what to make of it all. The story ended in a strange silence. The man's fate remained uncertain, and the room felt heavy with unresolved questions. It was like a mystery with no clear answer. Everyone left with a sense of unease, pondering the thin line between being scared and being truly mad. Feeling really sorry, the man told the story to prove he wasn't crazy. He wanted everyone to believe he was just really nervous. The story leaves you wondering what happens next, like a big puzzle about what's real and what's in his head.